Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here, and welcome back to another video on the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. Today, we start a new series. Each week, I'm going to be looking at the top 5 transfer targets at the start of the game week to help inform our decision making. Now, I want this series to develop, and I want you guys to basically build the sort of series you want. So today, I'll start with the graphics and the way that I think I'd like this series to go, but drop in the comments if you'd like me to look at more players, less players, if you'd like me to do more direct comparisons. Again, I want you guys to guide this series and give you the content that you want. But for today, we're going to be looking at the top 5 transfer targets ahead of game week 3. Game week 2 was just as crazy as game week 1. There was a lot of high scores, and it's been a pretty high scoring first couple of game weeks. If you have had pretty low scores so far, don't worry, there's still 36 game weeks to go, but hopefully this video can help inform your decision making and advise you who you should be targeting ahead of game week 3, and then obviously we have the international break. So, without further ado, let's get into this new series. So considering this is a video about transfers, I think there really is only one place to start, and that is with one of the most transferred in players this week after his stunning debut against Arsenal, and that is Romelu Lukaku. Now, just quickly before I jump into going through the stats and discussing whether I think you should transfer in Romelu Lukaku, I just want to explain the graphics on the screen, what you're looking at, and why I've presented them in this way. So if we start on the left-hand side, what you can see is essentially the players that have been transferred out the most in that area. So you can see the 4 players that have had the most transfers out, or at least the 4 players most noteworthy that have had transfers out: Ivan Toney, Kelechi Iheanacho, Richarlison, and Harry Kane. And you've got how many transfers out they've had. Now, worth noting, this is not net transfers. So it isn't transfers out minus transfers in. This is literally just how many people have transferred them out. So a good example is, for example, someone like Patrick Bamford. He's been transferred out by a lot of people, but he's also been transferred in by a few people. So this is just how many people have taken them out. So the reason I've done that is just to show you why I'm discussing the player I'm discussing and who a lot of players are potentially looking to ship out, and who this person is basically a replacement for. So on the left, you've got transfers. You've also got price, ownership, and transfers in of the main player. So you can see here Romelu Lukaku, 11.5 million, ownership 18.5%, transfers in by 316,000. You've then got the fixtures for the next, in this case, going to be the next 6 game weeks at the moment. So up until game week 8, a lot of people will be looking to play their wild card in between game week 7 and game week 8, because that's the second international break. So it's quite a nice little lot of fixtures to look at. You can see just to the right, I've got the color scheme, and this is the fixture analyzer from Fantasy Football Fix, which you can check out on our website. But you can see easy is essentially blue, and then it goes all the way to hard at red. So you can see the color scheme there. So you can see straight away Lukaku has 3 quite difficult fixtures, but 2 in the blue, which are technically easier fixtures. As well as fixtures, you've then got projected points for game weeks 3 to 8, so over the next 6 game weeks. So how many points does the algorithm think Lukaku can score over the next 6 game weeks? You've then got underlying statistics, expected FPL points over the last 2 game weeks, touches in the box, expected assists, non-penalty expected goals, non-penalty expected goals and expected assists, which is basically how many goals are they expected to be involved in. So all of these statistics are per 90. So please bear that in mind. This is not total. This is per 90 statistics. Obviously, Romelu Lukaku has only played 90 minutes, so it works out fine. And as well as those underlying statistics, we've also got some sort of heat map I'm going to include. Now, this one is a touch map for Romelu Lukaku. So this is all the times that he's touched the ball. But for each player, it might differ. We might have heat maps, touch maps, shot maps, attempted assist maps. There are lots of different maps that Fantasy Football Fix offer, and I'd like to just show you one of those for each of the players. I know that's a lot of information to take in, but I think it's presented in quite a simplistic way. Essentially, we're just looking at who have been transferred out the most, looking at the players' fixtures coming up, some of the underlying statistics, and then also some sort of nice graphic. In this case, it's a touch map. Right, apologies for rambling there about the graphics on the screen. Hopefully that is now clear. Again, discuss it in the comments if you want more or less, or if you need anything clearing up. So, Romelu Lukaku, should we be bringing him in? Now, I don't hate this transfer at all. I think it's quite a smart transfer if you're looking to build up team value, because Romelu Lukaku is going to rise in price tonight, almost 100%. We thought he'd actually rise in price last night, so I'd be very surprised if he doesn't go up. You know for sure if he scores against Liverpool, Villa, he'll go up again. And by the time the really nice fixtures start in game week 7, because that is when Chelsea's fixtures do start to swing, he could be 12 million, 12.1 million. It's going to be even harder to get him in. So I quite like it to get ahead of the curve. I'm a big fan of it. And if you have a look at his underlying statistics for the game against Arsenal, my word, it was some performance. Expected FPL points of 10.99, so expected to get 11 FPL points. He only got 8, I think it was, so basically underperformed. It performed even better than the actual stats suggest. Touches in the box, 11, which is almost the most in the Premier League, and he only played one game, so 11 touches in the box against Arsenal. Expected assist of 0.47, expected goals of 1.4, which basically means he was expected to be involved in almost 2 goals. If you watch the game as well, he just performed fantastically. You can see his touch map on the right. All of his touches are very, very central, which is exactly where we want him to be. Most of them are in the box, and even the ones that aren't in the box, they're just on the edge of it. He was absolutely dominant. He bullied the Arsenal centre-backs, which I know has been made into a bit of a joke, but he really did. And I don't even think that's the fault of the Arsenal centre-backs. It's just what Romelu Lukaku does. So I don't dislike this transfer at all. Underlying statistics are there. Historical performances from Lukaku are there. The touch map demonstrates it's exactly where we want him to be. The only slight thing that would put me off is just that the fixtures aren't that great. Now, I think unless you're playing your wild card, it would be quite difficult to get Salah, Bruno, and Lukaku in a team. I think you've probably got to drop one of Salah or Bruno, unless you've just built in a structure where you've already got a premium forward and you just make the switch, which is fine. A lot of people have done that of Harry Kane. When in that case, it's an easy swap. What I would say, if you've been keeping up to date with the news, a lot of the players that are going away on international duty to play for their countries might have to quarantine in game week 4 and potentially game week 5. Now, Mo Salah was one of those players that potentially would have had to quarantine in game week 4 and game week 5 and therefore missed them because he went on international duty. Now, the latest news is that Liverpool have rejected Salah's call-up. So they've said he cannot go on international duty with Egypt. Now, I was under the impression that countries couldn't do that with their players, but potentially it could just be Salah saving face and he doesn't want to say like he's rejecting the opportunity to go to his country. So do keep up to date with that. If Salah is likely to miss game week 4 or game week 5 and he does go on international duty, switching out Salah for a cheaper midfielder and upgrading an attacker to Romelu Lukaku could be a great strategy. Equally, I think if you just want to go for the plunge, maybe downgrade Bruno and upgrade a striker to Lukaku, I don't hate it at all. Personally, for me, up until game week 7, which is when Chelsea's fixtures start to swing, I think I would just prefer to have Salah and Bruno. Their fixtures are much better. I think they are much more captainable. Apart from game week 4, when they're already really good captain options, I just don't think I'd want to captain Lukaku, and therefore it's quite a lot of money to invest in him, but you are likely to catch those price rises and therefore get him in at a cheaper price. So I don't dislike it. The stats are there to prove it. He historically performs very well, but for me, I think I'm going to be waiting until game week 7. Now, there is a little bit of a theme about this week's transfer targets. A lot of them are going to be strikers. And the main reason for that is that there's a lot of transfer activity in the striker region. And as I said, the point of this is to try and help you guys decide who to bring in. And I know a lot of people are moving around their strikers with their free transfers. Ivan Toney being one of the key ones, and Kelechi Iheanacho, because Ivan Toney's obviously blanked in the first 2 games. He's looked okay, but he hasn't looked fantastic. And Kelechi Iheanacho just hasn't been featuring. So a lot of people are looking to move out those 2 in particular. And therefore, I'm going to cover a few of the different striking options. I think the number 1 target this week, if you have a free transfer and you're looking to bring in a striker, for me would be Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I'm just going to say at this stage as well, Antonio isn't in this video as a transfer target. I think he's a fantastic option. He's obviously rising in price at quite the rate. A lot of people are bringing him in. I still think he's a great option. I own him myself. My main worry with Antonio would just be that he's expected to go on international duty with Jamaica. And as we've just spoken about with Salah, there's a strong likelihood that potentially if he's double vaxxed, he might be able to get away with it. But there's a strong likelihood that Antonio might miss game week 4 if he does go on international duty with Jamaica. That would just put me off for the time being. Calvert-Lewin's stats are just as good as Antonio's. And also, he's obviously not going to miss game week 4 due to international duty. So I think for the time being, I prefer Calvert-Lewin. Now, if we have a look at Everton's fixtures, the main reason for Calvert-Lewin is the fixtures are just really great. And they stay great up until game week 8. You can see Brighton, Burnley, Villa and Norwich in the next 4. I'd be happy having him for all of those. Even against Man United, we saw against Southampton, they've got a bit of a shaky defence. West Ham in game week 8 obviously isn't the easiest. But those next 4 fixtures are absolutely great. He looks like he's going to continue to rise in price. A lot of managers are still bringing him in. Another reason, and you can see just directly above me, I've put the quote in there from the press conference. Now, this is the quote directly from Calvert-Lewin after the game. He took a penalty in game week 2, and he said, "I spoke to the manager before the first game of the season. We had that conversation. He put me on the pens, and thankfully I put one away against Leeds." So Calvert-Lewin won the penalty against Leeds. So a lot of us were thinking, oh, potentially the reason he took the penalty is because he won it. However, he has now said that the manager put him on pens before that game. So it looks like Calvert-Lewin is now the #1 designated penalty taker. Calvert-Lewin's stats without penalties is actually really frightening. So if we take a look at his stats, 7.36 expected FPL points per 90, which is absolutely crazy for the first 2 game weeks. 6.54 touches in the box per 90. Expected assists. Now, Calvert-Lewin's creativity has always been one of the worst in the leagues for strikers. He doesn't create chances for anyone else, but that's fine. We want him scoring goals. His non-penalty expected goals was 0.66 per 90 in the first 2 game weeks. If you add penalties to that and Everton start to win quite a few, those will be frightening figures. And I think he's almost approaching that essential, and I don't like to use that word, but that essential nature if he has penalties. I don't own Calvert-Lewin at the moment, but I'm looking at all ways to get him in. You can see on the right, that's his shot map. And he just takes shots inside the box. Again, he's a poacher. He doesn't create goals. He doesn't drop deep and get involved in the action deeper. He's in and around that box. Everton are trying to feed him at every opportunity. And he is that fox in the box, that talismanic striker that we want. He's projected to get 26.6 points in the next 6 game weeks, which is really, really high as well. One of the highest for strikers. For me, Calvert-Lewin should be the main target for you if you're looking to bring in a striker. Obviously, a bit of a dodgy price at 8.1 million, especially for Ivan Toney and Kelechi Iheanacho. But if you can find the funds elsewhere, he is the #1 target in my opinion. Now, this is an interesting one. You could say potentially Romelu Lukaku and Calvert-Lewin are obvious transfers. They're being brought in by a lot of managers. They've scored points in the prior game weeks. Patrick Bamford's potentially one of the more differential transfers in this week. I know he's owned by over 15% at the time of recording, but more managers are actually shipping out Bamford than bringing him in. So he's had around 70 or 80,000 transfers out at the time of recording, and only 20,000 managers have brought him in. And I find that remarkable because he's performed pretty well in the first couple of game weeks, and the fixtures are starting to now turn for Leeds. So if you've stuck with him for the first 2, I would potentially just be holding on to him. I'm actually looking to bring him in this week. If not this week, it'd probably be game week 5, because if we have a look at their fixtures, Burnley in 3 is a great fixture, but that game week 4 fixture against Liverpool slightly off-putting. And then from game week 5, Leeds potentially have the best fixtures in the league, or arguably anyway. Newcastle, West Ham, Watford and Southampton in the 4 after the international break. After Liverpool, in game week 4. So I'm looking at Patrick Bamford this week. It will probably be game week 5 for me, however. If we have a look at his stats, he's projected to get roughly the same points as Dominic Calvert-Lewin over the next 6 game weeks, which is obviously fantastic. He's also £0.1 million cheaper. I expect Calvert-Lewin to continue to rise in price, and Patrick Bamford isn't at the moment. 3.71 expected FPL points per 90 is slightly underwhelming for the first 2. But if you think Leeds got trashed by Man United in game week 1, and Bamford didn't really have a sniff, and that's really no fault of Patrick Bamford himself. It's just the way the game went. So I wouldn't really look at that too much. And in game week 2, he performed significantly better against Everton. And the stats for game week 2 were actually up there with the best strikers in the league. 3.77 touch in the box per 90. Again, after that Man United game, that's still pretty good. The thing I love about Bamford is he creates goals and he scores goals. So we know Calvert-Lewin has got one route to points, essentially. He's not going to get you many assists. He'll get you those goals. But if he's not in a goal-scoring mood, he's going to find it very difficult. Bamford will get you assists. Bamford will get you goals. He creates, he drops deep, he gets into the box. He's really a talismanic figure for Leeds. And a non-penalty expected goals and expected assists of just under 0.5 is very, very good considering that tough first fixture. He is still on penalties as far as we know, which is obviously fantastic as well. That's what you want from your strikers. So I really like Bamford. I definitely wouldn't be transferring him out if you owned him. I would look at bringing him in if you've already got Calvert-Lewin and Antonio, or you're put off by Antonio because of that game week 4 uncertainty, or perhaps you just don't have the money to go up to Calvert-Lewin. I think Bamford's probably the 3rd best striker at the moment behind Calvert-Lewin and Antonio. I'd definitely be looking to bring him in, but maybe one to look at. Maybe we'll revisit in game week 5 when Leeds fixtures turn for the better. What do we say about this man? Saeed Benrahma. He was an absolute Twitter darling. If you're involved in the Twitter community, the FPL community on Twitter, you'll know that Saeed Benrahma was hyped up a lot in pre-season, performing very well. A lot of us have him in. We probably didn't expect anywhere near the performances we've seen. Obviously, we had the hope, but my word, he's probably been one of the best players in the league, probably one of the best FPL options as well. And he has been brought in by the masses. He might potentially be the first triple price rise we get in a single game week. He went up in price last night after being bought in by hundreds of thousands of managers. He looks like he's going to go up in price again tonight. He might then go for a 3rd time. And I'm pretty sure we only got 1 triple rise in the entirety of last season. So Saeed Benrahma might be the only player to even do it this season. And he looks like he's going to do it this game week. So if you're going to look to bring in Benrahma, unless you're someone that just really doesn't care about team value, or potentially you're downgrading the likes of Harvey Barnes or Kai Havertz and money isn't really an issue for you, I would be looking to move early on Benrahma, which is something I don't normally advise because a lot can happen in the space of a week. Something I'd like to start with is just by saying, keep an eye out for the new red list countries that are announced on Wednesday. I think Benrahma, the last game that he plays in the international break for Algeria, is in Morocco. Now, Morocco is potentially going to enter the red list on Wednesday. If that is the case, and Benrahma hasn't been double vaxxed and the clubs don't find a way to reject Benrahma going on international duty with Algeria, then there's a small possibility that Benrahma misses game week 4 against Southampton because, again, of the quarantine and issues. So all I'd advise, I know I keep banging on about it, but I just advise to keep up to date with it. Maybe wait until Wednesday to make your transfers if you can, because we should get an update on some of it then. But if you want to make the move early, I don't really blame you. If we ignore the fact that he might have to quarantine, if we just say, do you know what, Benrahma is going to be fine, the fixtures are amazing. Crystal Palace and Southampton in the next two are about as good as you can hope for. Man United in 5 obviously isn't great, but again, we know that Man United can be vulnerable defensively. And then Leeds, Brentford and Everton. If Benrahma can nail his place, which I don't see any reason why Moyes would drop him at all. If you can, the next 6 fixtures are amazing and you could keep him until you wildcard in game week 8 potentially, which looks like a nice time to wildcard. Obviously, the statistics are amazing. Expected FPL points per 90 at 8. So he's expected to get 16 FPL points in the first 2 game weeks, which is great. Obviously, well and truly outperformed that. Touches in the box, 5.11 per 90. So he's getting in the box a lot. Expected assists and expected goals, both really high, which is exactly what we want. He's basically just taken on that Lingard role, which is what Lingard did so well last season. Benrahma's just stepped into that role. He's made it his own. He's performing so well in that role. And I think even if West Ham were still to sign Lingard, what I really liked about Benrahma last night is he actually switched his position with Pablo Fornals. So Pablo Fornals went into the centre, Benrahma went out to the left. And what that tells me is that if Lingard does come to West Ham and he goes into that central attacking midfield role, I think it will be Fornals that drops out, and I think Benrahma would go out to the left. So if you have a look at his touch map from the first 2 game weeks, including the first game week when he played centrally, he does like to drift out to the left. And I think, again, what that says is that Lingard could just occupy that central role and Benrahma could switch out to the left. And obviously, if West Ham don't sign Lingard, that makes his prospects even better because I think he's just going to be that main man in behind Antonio. The link-up play with Antonio is absolutely amazing. And just to finish off with his projected points over the next 6 game weeks is 23 points. So he's expected to keep up with the likes of Calvert-Lewin and Bamford, who are known entities in the Premier League, performed well last season as well. So I own Benrahma. I've owned him since the start of the season. I think if I didn't, I think I'd just bite the bullet. I think I'd just move him in early. The only thing that would worry me is that potential quarantine in game week 4 as a result of going on international duty. So the final position or player we're going to discuss is a defender. And apart from striking positions, I think the most transfers out this week have been in the defensive positions. Now, the main reason for that is that a lot of people are looking to downgrade their defenders and hopefully upgrade, therefore, their attackers to fit in the likes of Lukaku, Antonio and Benrahma, amongst some other players. Now, the most transferred out player this week is Ben White. Obviously disappointing. Arsenal have been terrible defensively. Ben White ill as well. We're not sure if he'll feature in game week 3. Potentially be back for game week 4, and Arsenal's fixtures do turn for the better in game week 4. So at the start of this, I would say if I owned Ben White, I'd be keeping Ben White. I think Arsenal will come good in the later game weeks. Probably the fixtures turn for the better, and there aren't many better options at 4.5 million than Ben White. He might fall in price, but I think I'd just take that on the chin personally. The likes of Luke Shaw, John Stones and Luca Dean, obviously they're all 5.5 million, and I think the main reason people are transferring them out is to bring in cheaper defenders and upgrade the funds in attack. So what I've done is I'm going to now discuss the cheap defender that I would probably be looking to bring in if I was looking to downgrade. And that is Tino Livramento of Southampton. Obviously priced at 4 million, played 90 minutes in the first 2 game weeks, looks absolutely fantastic. If we take a look at Southampton's fixtures, they play Newcastle and West Ham in the next 2. I think they're great fixtures, to be honest. Again, West Ham did look fantastic. We know Newcastle can score goals in Callum Wilson, but I wouldn't say that one clean sheet out of those 2 is out of the question, and that's what I'd be hoping for. Man City in 5 obviously isn't great, but if you've got someone to rotate with the likes of Luke Ayling potentially, or even Ben White, rotate in game week 5, you could bench Livramento. Then Wolves in game week 6, I quite like that. Chelsea obviously isn't a great fixture, and then Leeds in 8. So Southampton's fixtures aren't great. They're probably lower mid-table with respect to fixtures, but again, at £4 million, you're not expecting a great deal from your defender. His stats from the first 2 game weeks aren't great, if I'm being honest. Expected FPL points of 2.65, attacking threat virtually non-existent. So what I'm going off here instead is actually his touch map and also the eye test. And I know a lot of people don't like the eye test, they prefer stats, which is absolutely fine, but he just looked really lively. If you have a look at his touch map, he was bombing up and down that right wing absolutely fantastically, sort of reminiscent of Trent, obviously without the perfect delivery at the end. But he spent just as much time in the opposition half as he did in his own half. Southampton did actually switch to a back 5 in the game against Manchester United, or a back 3, and Livramento was playing in at right wing back. If Southampton do decide to stick with the 3 at the back, or the 5 at the back, and Livramento's playing in at right wing back, I absolutely love that for him. Now, Kyle Walker-Peters is sat on the bench. Obviously, they signed him last season, so I would expect Kyle Walker-Peters to come back into the starting 11 at some point. But I don't necessarily think that is definitely for Livramento. Obviously, Southampton have signed a new French left-back. It could potentially be for him instead, or Livramento could switch out to the left. I personally think at the moment it's Livramento's space to lose. And I think if he continues to perform this way, he will continue to start. I think that's the opinion that a lot of Southampton fans hold as well. So keep an eye on it. Look at the press conferences. If he does lose his place, obviously that's not great. But at £4 million, it might be worth taking the risk. The other player that's cheap that you could potentially go for is Shane Duffy. But he's now risen to 4.1 million. So you're losing 1.1 million on him. At this early stage in the season, that is quite a lot. But Shane Duffy did take 7 shots in the box in the first 2 game weeks. Brighton have fantastic fixtures, and he looks just about as nailed as Livramento for the next few. So if you don't like the look of Livramento, you don't want to take the risk because of Kyle Walker-Peters in the background coming in, then you might instead want to go for Shane Duffy, and I like that move as well. So guys, there you have it. Those are my top 5 transfer targets ahead of the upcoming game week. Now, it is worth noting that there are multiple other players that we could also be targeting, but I obviously only have time to cover a few in this video. But use the features over at the Fantasy Football Fix website. Obviously, some of the stuff I've showed off today with respect to like heat maps, touch maps, underlying statistics, fixture analyzer, this is what is driving my decision making. So after this video, go and check for yourself. The links will be in the description below. But I really do hope you enjoyed the first episode of this new series. As I said, I'd like you guys to mold it exactly how you want. So drop in the comments anything you did like, anything you want in future videos that I didn't do in this video, and hopefully over the coming weeks this will be a staple in your weekly content, and it will be able to advise your decision making as much as possible. If you are enjoying the videos on this channel, we're bringing at least a video a day at the moment, especially the daily price change prediction videos. So if you haven't been checking them out, go do so. Please do like, comment, subscribe. It really helps support the channel grow. Turn on notifications so that you know when videos go live, and we will catch you this evening for a daily price change prediction video, and then also throughout the week there'll be more videos to come. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you soon, guys. Bye-bye.